Welcome to the Agents Aquarius, episode 9. I am Jim Pine.
This is Matty D. We're going to war
We're going to war,
on
everybody.
this episode.
The funny thing is, we could be going to war. You could drop this episode any day in the last 30 years, in that war.
100 years,
yeah. It would all be present, like, oh, yeah, this must be today that they're recording this because we're going to war.
Yeah, bro, that's so true. That intro right there could have landed 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit.
5 months ago, 3 weeks ago. But here we are, we're going to the war. Which war, you ask? Exactly. That's my answer, everyone. Exactly.
Where's the army of Aquarius directed its energy? I mean, you got a lot of choices.
The army of Aquarius trying to be hip to all the different wars. There's so many of them. I mean, just this week alone, a new huge energy focus is happening on a certain part of the world known as the Middle East, as a certain nation was attacked by another group of people. I don't even know if you can
from within its own country. I mean, that's that's within the boundaries of said country.
And that is the war I refer to when I start the podcast. But obviously, we've been in, like, I'm 52 years old. We have been at constant war since then. When we were both born, we were born into the war on communism.
Yeah,
we were in this beautiful little jungle country known as Vietnam, trying to keep and repel communism from happening.
Because the domino effect, which was total fucking horseshit. The domino effect was supposed to cause the whole region one after the other. Now, I know the Vietnamese are one of very few communist countries in the world. I think it's like Vietnam, China, Cuba, and then I believe there's another. But anyway, the dominoes never fell. That country did. Maybe it's Laos. So maybe 2 dominoes fell in that little quarter of the world. But maybe it's just because those people are the same part of the world and they just think alike.
Well, are they communist to this day?
Vietnam, I believe, is communist.
Okay.
I mean, we call China communist, but come on, that's like just a controlled capitalist system. But
well, yeah, it's well beyond capitalism. What China is. China is a dictatorship with, it's well beyond capitalism.
It's a whole, but no, they have some kind of capitalism going on. Like, people make money.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to try and break them down.
No.
But when we were born, the little sliver of jungle territory in this earth,
we were born
was getting ripped to pieces.
Thing being, we never went to war with Vietnam. We actually, the actuality of the legal dictation of what we do and don't do in this country, we actually never went to war. Congress never signed off and sent us to war.
Yeah.
We just did.
Agent Pine, can I clarify something?
Yes.
When we opened, I said we're at war, but I mean the agents of Aquarius are at war, and that is a mental war, a spiritual war, an emotional war to an extent. I don't mean to say like we're going to get out the guns. I think we need to talk about the wars that are happening. And you and I were touching on this earlier, that there's more than just their shooting war. The bankers have their war. The social conditioning programming people have their war. There's a lot of wars going on right now, and a lot of them are very, very quiet behind the scenes.
Why don't we just think about it in our lifetime? We could try to do this in order. Like I said, we were born during a time of war, okay? But it wasn't that we were actually at war. There was never a declaration of war signed.
Yeah.
It was just that we were born during the time of it was the war on communism. So we were willing to go into other countries and do this. It wasn't nation building. It was more about trying to bring in this other form of government that they should be using because Russia had gotten in there. And we're not looking to get caught up in the details. We're not doing a whole episode on that. But that's the way I look at it. It's like we were born on this fight, on this red fight. That's the communism, to get the Ruskies, the Reds,
Yeah, we grew up with the threat of nuclear annihilation from the Soviet Union.
Which all comes from the Cold War, right?
Yeah, Cold War, fight on communism. I mean, think back to that quote in the Stanley Kubrick movie, Full Metal Jacket from Joker, What help me through? What does he say? He's like, I joined the Marines to travel the world, meet exotic people, and kill them.
And kill
Something
them.
to
Yes,
that
and
effect.
kill them. Yes.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's what our foreign policy has been. Like, let's just go to foreign lands, kill them, take all their shit, and overrun their resources with our multinational corporations. We
yeah, but
we
that
we go in the world and take their shit. That's all. We're an empire. It's
yeah, but
imperialism.
that's snarky the way you're saying it. That's not the
It
way they
is
like.
snarky.
Yeah, that's not the way they would wanted. That's not what they were trying to do in their eyes. But
I wonder what is in their eyes, but that's the end
well,
effect. It's an empire that takes shit from the other countries.
the end effect is they say they're trying to spread democracy while we don't have democracy here and we live in a social like a democratic republic.
It's a democratic republic where we elect representatives to make decisions for us.
So it's not even really a democracy. It's a
It's not a
republic.
democracy. It
Yeah.
is. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not a democratic republic. It's a representative republic, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, because we
Whatever.
have
You know what?
representatives
What
that
I
they
think
we don't vote, and your vote doesn't each count because it goes and people speak for us.
people speak for us. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, this is going off the. Okay, so
Back to war.
we were born yeah, war, dude. We were born at war while this country was in war. Um, and then through our lives, I don't know if it's exactly next. It's next is the war. They did a war on drugs, and that starts around
Hmm.
1980. They
And who
do
was
this.
that war waged against?
Well, I mean, black people.
Yeah, yeah, or poor people,
It
or
really was.
Americans in general.
It really is
If you were
poor.
rich, you weren't getting prosecuted in the war on drugs.
It really was poor people, but it was also against black people because they were in the middle of trying to disrupt that harmony of the black family, and they needed to get the dads out because they already knew the stats. If we can disrupt the household, we can we can throw these households into disorder because they're going to be lacking a crucial part of it, which is the father, and he'll be locked up for drugs because we'll create such disharmony in the world that these people have to do different things and maybe sell drugs or do things like that and have crazy
Or just to
crimes.
alleviate the pain of poverty, take some
Sure.
drugs.
Yes,
It,
or take some drugs.
I'll vouch for it. It works.
Yeah, I do it daily, and well, I don't do it to escape poverty.
No, we're not poor now, but we certainly have been. And believe me, when you're
Yes,
broke, if you could just get high and not think about stuff, it helps, at least in the short term.
we've said it before. Um, I feel like we might have said it. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Okay. There's a war right now, currently this week. That very thing we're talking about, this war on drugs,
Yeah.
because communism's still poking its head around, but the war on drugs is hit this week, literally, or last week, when Gruesome Newsom got rid of the bill. He got vetoed a bill or a legislation,
Bill's fine.
a
That
bill
works. We get you.
to legalize the use of psychedelic mushrooms in California.
He tanked it. Yeah, he vetoed it, shot it down.
Yeah, so that's a war on your
Well,
consciousness.
what were you going to use those mushrooms for? Like, fucking party it up? What was
Does it
the?
matter? Well, does that matter?
No, it's a totally
Why not?
facetious question. We know it's for for medicinal purposes. It's
Well,
great for PTSD. It's great for healing emotional trauma. It's great for people who are at the end of their life for them to cope with their impending death. There are so many reasons that psychedelics are beneficial to your mental state if used well. I don't even say you got to use correct or you got to use it, in such a way. I like just use it pretty good. Use it well, and the benefits are a multitude. And our guy, Gruesome Newsom, he shot it down.
yeah, he did. He did.
Graham Hancock would call it the war on consciousness.
Well, it is a war on consciousness because the government gets to dictate what you can do to change your consciousness. Like that sounds extremely ballsy that you can just
Yeah.
be like that.
Even just to tell you what to do with your own self while you're, walking and living through your days. Forget
Unbelievable.
forget how you behave in public. what you do in the privacy of your own home with your own mind, you think it would be your business, but not with the war on drugs.
Well, that's just wild to think about. Like literally, like you could be in your house sitting in your chair, and now you've ingested a type of mushroom that changes your consciousness level, and that you are now susceptible to being locked in a cage because you decided to be in the safety of your own home and take mushrooms,
Mhm,
magic mushrooms, psychedelic psilocybin mushrooms.
mhm.
And now, sorry, your freedoms. Not only were you trying to free your consciousness, you've now jeopardized your physical freedom.
Yeah, isn't that weird? You try to free your consciousness and you get tossed in a cage.
It's weird, would be like a huge understatement.
Yeah, man.
It's like it's so criminal. It's so gross. And I mean that in level of like wavelengths of ideas. Like, wow, like somebody wants to change their consciousness level, and you're like, no. I couldn't imagine something more like the Matrix, you
Oh,
know?
how so? How do you mean?
Because the Matrix, those agents would come in the movie The Matrix. Okay,
Oh,
in the
okay.
movie
Them
The
those guys.
Matrix, when you did anything to change your consciousness outside of their programming, those agents would come in and grab you out and pull you back in, being like, no, 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 no. What are you doing out there? You can't go out there. This is where you need to be. You just walk in the line and you do your thing.
I think you just summed up the Matrix for me way better than ever did myself. I didn't quite see it that deep. Like you think outside the program we put you in, and we're gonna come fuck you up.
Yeah.
That made it a little deeper for me. So, tip of the hat, bud, because I've seen that movie a couple of times.
Well, that's what it's about. Because you're plugging in. When they plug into the Matrix, you're changing your consciousness.
Yeah.
Because when they went into the Matrix, now they had a different level. They weren't just an MP. They weren't just this walking, moving thing in this other world that everybody else is moving in. They went outside of it, just like you do when you're on mushrooms. You go outside of it, and now you get to see behind the scenes. You might see.
Yeah.
You don't see the elves on mushrooms. Generally, people don't talk of that. That's more of a MDMA or some other
DMT thing.
DMT thing, but you do see the workings, the inner workings of the gears turning. Possibly, you see the mechanics of the universe. You see the, oh wow, this is all just facades around me. There's something behind the
Yeah.
facade. It's not really a building.
Yeah. And I think you see a different perspective than what you're normally accustomed to. And it comes on really, really strong because of the effect of the drug. So when that different perspective comes on really strong, it kind of diminishes the power of the previous perspectives. And if I could bring this down to earth a little bit, this thing about the Matrix, a movie, a computer program, you're plugged in, you're jacked in with this shit in the back of your head. That sounds like no, that is purely science fiction. But we could bring it down to earth. When we think about the Matrix, it's just what's in your head. It's the programming that's in your mind. This is why we keep talking about you control the narrative and you control the world, because what people do is they get you to think a certain way. And when I talk about the Matrix, what I'm talking about is the social programming that's in your head. It doesn't have to be a spike in the back of your brain to program you to, experience something. The Matrix is a great analogy because it's easy to get in touch with it. It's how we think. And how we think is currently very, very manipulated, and it would be fair to say there's a war on for your mind.
Yeah. I mean, we're really skipping ahead right now,
We're still
but
talking war, man. Talking
we're
war.
talking wars, but it's almost like, but here's the thing, you know what? We're not skipping ahead. It's just because I've recently said there's a war on our consciousness,
Yeah.
as like a new war. But when we entered that war on drugs, that
Hmm.
was a war on our consciousness then. Because just smoking some
Absolutely.
weed changes your consciousness. There's so many ways with drugs or without drugs. I'm not like saying drugs are the way. I'm just saying there's drugs. You can smoke marijuana and it definitely changes your consciousness level. It just it's very, these things are gateways, and not just to other drugs, but to different
Yeah.
levels of your consciousness. That's what
Yeah.
the movie Doors was about. So here we are currently, they say we're in a 5D war, right?
Fifth dimension.
Fifth dimensional war.
Fifth dimensional warfare, I guess, to
Fair.
be specific. Hey, let's just say like Agents of Aquarius. When I hear 5D, I think fifth dimension and higher spiritual realms. And third dimension is like this realm. But if you're talking about fifth dimensional warfare, that's a very specific thing to talk about, and I just want to enter it with that having been said. So please continue.
Yeah, enter it into the record. No, it has nothing to do with the fifth dimension. It's fifth dimensional warfare, but I was just slowed rolling it out because I'm bong hit fucking Louis over here.
That's all right, man. I heard 5D and I went straight to
which there was a war on words. There was a war on words. You couldn't say the word bong in a store. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on this, but we've definitely talked about it before.
No, it's funny. You can't say bong, and well, it's not so much anymore, but yeah.
Not anymore, but you couldn't. In California in a smoke shop, if you said bong, you're not getting that bong. You have to say water pipe. After the war on drugs, pretty quickly after, and then they redid it again, but they did this back in the day, was the war on terrorism. That followed that war on drugs. The war on terrorism, it happens back in the 80s. Terrorism gets very popular in the world. There's terrorists, they're making a lot of noise. They'd done it starting in the 60s and the 70s. The war on terrorism then changes, and then we start kind of dealing with it. It's not just about in Egypt hijackers hijacking a plane. We at home start dealing with terrorism, and that's when there's a war. After 9/11 is a war on terrorism, but before that, they had already started on these homegrown terrorists. And then you can look into Ruby Ridge for that. There was some militia groups going on, but they start this war on terrorism here and then later abroad. And I just then want to go back to when I was in 10th grade, I wrote a paper about terrorism. And terrorism is an interesting thing. Well, terrorism is now become a certain terrorism. You say the word and it has a certain connotation to it. People have a certain, what it is because of the Matrix. They've dictated a certain picture now.
Yeah, 9/11 and Muslims essentially is kind of what the roundup is from the mainstream media.
Well, that's what it was, but now they're actually changing it and they're saying, no, you could be anything. You could be just a MAGA Republican, and now you're also a domestic terrorist. But
all right, fair.
You could be a person that questions the school, what they're doing at your kid's school, and then those people.
Yeah, we've heard of that, haven't we? Was it in California where that happened? Where people got labeled places.
It's been in several places.
Okay,
parking lots and the whole thing.
But to be clear, parents all because ended up on a terrorism list because they spoke against the school board.
They ended up on people that could be. They said that people that speak up at school meetings and speak out against the government or about the even local government, those people can be deemed as domestic terrorists.
Potential threats. That's disgusting.
Yeah. And well, terrorism's a crazy thing because they've literally created a God, I don't want to say homunculus, but not a homunculus, but they've taken all these words, put them together, and now they've made this boogeyman that's called a terrorist. And that's what I get back to my paper I wrote, was that terrorism is just a tactic. People often get very quickly just caught into like terror, like they're watching a James Bond movie and it's Spectra. It's like, yes, in this world there are bad men. Yes, there are boogeymen, but terror is a tactic. George Washington was a terrorist. Okay,
if you choose to take the side that he was if you choose to take that point of view.
No, if you choose to use terrorism as it's a tactic, they make it a noun or whatever. I guess, is that a noun or a pronoun? I don't know what that is. They're making it a person now. Instead of it, terrorism's a tactic, and somebody that does terrorism is terrorist. But now they've changed it through our lifetimes. We watched where it's gone from Carlos the Jackal to now it could be Louis the Plumber.
Yeah,
and it's because they speak out against the government. And that's literally a government that has built under the freedom of speech. They have a First Amendment, or our first constitutional right, or is that the Bill of Rights?
They're
Is
all the same.
freedom
The
of
Bill of
speech.
Rights
Yeah,
and the Constitution, the first 10 are the same.
freedom of speech, and then your government's like, no, you don't have it, and we've actually watched that now. So it's gone from war on terrorism to these war on words. As we just entered the germ war more recently, we've just started this new war on germs.
Yeah.
And then nobody will have germs. We'll all vaccinate our way out of germs.
Yeah, good
They're
luck.
calling it viruses, but that's the war on disinformation, misinformation, information. It was like,
my favorite is malinformation. It's literally truth. It's that someone finds inconvenient. And I don't mean it like an Al Gore inconvenient truth. I mean, like, you tell someone, it's like, hey, here's a video of the U.S. Army helicopter gunning down a bunch of journalists in Iraq. That's what Julian Assange is getting prosecuted for, by the way. Just side note. But that's malinformation. It's true, but we don't like the way you framed it. We want you to say that it was justified what they did. It's like, no, but you're guilty of malinformation because you framed it a certain way. Framed the truth a certain way.
Well, mal, coming from the root word, I mean, using the root word mal, which is, I guess, in Latin, but I know it's in French or in Spanish, is bad.
Right. Okay.
So it's mal, it's bad. Like, oh, you're giving bad information. Because what it is,
according to who?
But it's not bad because it's wrong. It's not bad because it's misinforming. It's bad because you're making me look bad with your truthful words. Dude, there's a clip on the internet of Nancy the fucking devil Pelosi talking about the smear wrap up.
The smear wrap up.
I've said it to you, but the smear wrap up is where they create a bad story. So they basically start a rumor about your opponent, we'll say, in politics. You then get the news to report on this lie you just created about this person. You get the news to report on, like, oh, the reports are that this person might be involved in
Okay.
And then that's the wrap up. Now you can go, like, now you can cite the news to be like, oh yeah, the news is saying
that's what they all actually do. The Washington Post will run a story, and then the New York Times will say, this is what happened, citing the Washington Post. And of course, Washington Post is like, unnamed intelligence officials told us the story.
Yeah.
It's like they make it all up and they all circulate the same line. They cite each other as the source. And it's like, dude, it doesn't work that way. Well, actually,
it does.
It does work that way, but it used to not work that way because people in journalism and news media had integrity. Not always, and not all people, but it was way more present 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah. It works out beautifully for them because, like, and then she says it. She said she's sitting behind a podium. And she's just like, oh yeah, that's called the smear wrap up. And she's like proud. She's like,
no shit, swaying drunk, probably.
Well, she's fucking, you never know with her.
Wait, so she said her game, like she explained the game
she says what it's called, and she then goes on to describe what the smear wrap up is.
Yeah.
So we create a lie. You create a lie against your opponent, and then you spread that information, and you get the news to report it. And then when the news reports it, you can cite the news as being the information, like the source for it.
Yeah, total circular thinking, total bullshit. And it's totally dominating the news sphere these days.
Well, it just shows you that smearing somebody, smearing their name, this, character assassinations, that's what it's all about. It's in this world of smoke and mirrors, it's so easy to do this because it's like you're not dealing with characters. You're not dealing with you just discredit them, and then they know, like, oh well, I've already been blackmailed, so I know not to fuck with that.
Yeah. Well, here, how about this? In the world of today, news being a couple or 3 weeks old, being ancient and forgotten already, this was the case of Russell Brand. Some like this news organization in England started calling all of his ex-lovers that they could get contact information for, and the guy was a drug addict and a sex addict, so we had plenty of people that they can call. And they call people, from what I hear, they call people again and again and again and again and again, and they kept calling all these people. And eventually 3 people came forward and they said they had these stories. Now, none of it was ever proven in court. None of it was ever like
Never
verified.
charged.
He
Never
was not
charged.
charged. The stuff wasn't proven, all these things. It was quite literally 3 people of a group of people that were reached out to came back with a story that fit the narrative that this news channel was trying to push forward. And suddenly it hits all the wire that Russell Brand's a rapist. Now, for all I know, Russell Brand is a rapist. Kind of don't know. I was
doesn't
about to say I
matter.
kind
It
of
doesn't
doubt it,
matter.
but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
He's never
So
been charged with it.
he's never been charged. But then a MP from England, whatever they call it. What are MPs? What does that stand for? They're
I
like
thought
Congress in England.
They're prime ministers and
Not MP is like a Congress person or something like that. But this person comes forward and she says, "Hey, you guys at social media companies, you need to stop letting this guy make money on your platforms because he's bad." And again, as you said, no proof, no court trial, no guilty verdict, none of it. And they demonetized him because someone came forward and said something.
because they've changed the systems. Now, I mean, he's not a U.S. resident, I don't believe.
No,
he,
he's
he
English.
probably
he
holds,
lives in England.
He may hold 2 passports for all I know. I don't know all these standards, but like maybe he's held under different standards and we're used to U.S. standards. But the thing is, nowadays, what they do is in this country, they attack you in the media, which can
They
now be
smear
all
you.
kinds of different, and they smear you and smear
And what
your
was
name.
Nancy's phrase again? What's it called?
It's called the smear wrap up.
The smear wrap up. Okay.
And what they do is they smear your name. You never go to court. Nothing ever happens with this. And then everybody just says, oh, that person did that. Oh, there were weapons of mass destruction. Oh, and they just say whatever they were told with no proof that this ever happened. This is the same, this happens time and time again. They do it just to discredit people. Oh, that lady's a voodoo doctor that said
I remember
the lady, part of they just do these smear campaigns, attack your characters, they character assassinate people. And don't worry, they'll assassinate people too, but they just attack your character because they've made media so powerful that there's not really any mass journalism happening to tell the real story or to get down to the nitty gritty of what happened, to tell the story.
Stories aren't strong enough to counter what's happening from them.
I mean, is it lost on you when you see the video where it's a news station and it's like, oh, just in the name of fair journalism, we'd like you to know that KCWA, we only, fairly, and then they click to the next one and they're saying the same thing at the same time, and then the screen is filled with
it's a roundup of a bunch of different journalists saying the exact same message.
Exactly, because that's what came across their teleprompter to say that night, because it's not journalism, it's just they're reporting what they're told to report. And
they are actually talking heads. But
the craziest thing is the thing they're all saying is like, oh, we are fair and we are not biased. And we stand here at this news station alone and look for justice. And
they all say it's a threat to democracy.
Yeah. As
news reporters in 50 different states are saying the same exact script word for word. And anyone listening to this, you could just Google it and look it up, and you'll see this video, a compilation of 50 different news channels where the news talking heads are repeating the same exact story verbatim, but what they're saying is really insidious. They say, watch out for misinformation. It's a threat to our democracy. And a curious thing about these people who tend to get smeared, like Harvey Weinstein, yeah, let's smear that guy. That's a pretty good thing. I get it. But what happens more often than not, the go-to thing for the people, let me start that over. The people getting smeared tend to be talking against, speaking out against the government, speaking out against the corporate machine that runs our country. They're speaking out against sources of power, and Russell Brand is one of these people. Russell Brand, on all his media, he's like, hey, here's a lie the government did. Hey, here's a lie that the corporate entity that supplies you with whatever did. Hey, here's a view behind the scenes of how your world is really run. The people who get these smears like the witch doctor. What did the witch doctor say? She said, "Don't take the variety shot because you
They
could
didn't
do
have the
other."
shot yet. No, no,
They
no.
didn't have
This
the
was in
shot.
the
So
very
what was she?
beginning. They
What
were
were they
just saying
doing? A
you can
treatment
take.
or something?
Yeah, they were saying you could take ivermectin, vitamin D, and something else.
Yeah,
These would all be
it
very
was
good
a
ways.
antibiotic and well,
Yeah,
whatever it was. But that's what she was saying. She was speaking against the people in power, speaking against the money, and she got smeared
yeah, because yeah,
again and again. The same fucking playbook. And remember, Julian Assange, the shit he got arrested for was first. It was
rape.
uh no, not actually rape. It would have technically, I think, in this country been battery because he was accused of having sex with them without a condom when he said he had one.
Oh,
So
but they call that rape in that country of some sort. But
it was called rape, but those women retracted the story. But it was
exactly,
the same smear campaign on him
exactly,
as on
exactly.
Russell Brand, and you see the same playbook played again and again and
Yeah,
again.
but that's the thing. They didn't tell you. Like I said, rape, and then you were like, "Whoa, no, no, it wasn't." But no, that's what he was arrested. He was arrested for rape during that time. It was in a different country, and their terms are a little different. But that's what it was
Mhm.
for. And then you're like, it was this, and it's like, yeah, but they weren't broadcasting that part. It was like, oh no,
They
this
were
guy's a
not broadcasting
rapist.
that
Oh
part.
no,
Yeah.
he's a rapist. He's got to go down. He just told
Well,
everybody all the secrets.
yeah, and recall that's what the Russell Brand news about Russell Brand was saying too. It was always Russell Brand accused of rape. It was never accused of battery because he didn't use a condom. It was never like uh, um, sexual harassment in the workplace. It was none of those things. Like the things that he was actually, when you break down what he was actually accused of and the specifics that those three women put forward as their stories, um, I know understandably one of those can be interpreted as rape. And again, I'm not going to weigh in on if he did or didn't because I'm not there. I don't know. I don't know any of these people, but I know that the pattern plays itself out again and again and again. And it's just the people who stand up to
Yes, that's the
power.
difference. When you're the in that's one of the scariest things to think you live in a society that says we protect whistleblowers, okay?
Mhm.
And specifically the president at the time when Assange and uh Snowden, I believe
Mhm.
that's during Obama's administration, he was all about we're protecting we're going to protect whistleblowers.
Yes,
That's not good.
that's what they
But
said outwardly.
and then there was more whistleblower. There's Chelsea Manning, which is Bradley Manning, who then the CIA fucking mind fucks so hard that she goes trans. Like it's dude, she sat in a cell and they mind programmed her like, oh, you want to fuck with us?
Well, Chelsea was understood that she was tortured under the definition of the UN.
Yeah.
Like it was you're naked in a cold room, and then they crank the heat,
You
and
know,
then
and
they
then
make it
playing
cold again,
music,
and then
it's
they
wet.
pipe
Yeah.
music, and yeah, you can't sleep. Yeah,
Yes.
it is quite literal torture. She was tortured. Now, if you say that's what caused her to flip and go
No,
from being male identified to people identified, I mean, it's certainly possible. We understand trauma will do that to a person.
I'm saying that I believe that she was not handled by prison officials only, and that there was security or intelligence and there was intelligence agencies involved in her imprisonment, and that they definitely put MK Ultra on her. And when they do that, now you're at the behest, man. Now they can make you turn into a lot of different things. And
In a
I'm not
nutshell, they
saying that
torture you
person
and then
did.
brainwash you.
I'm not
You want
attacking
to.
trans people. It's not that at all. I'm being
I
hyperbolic when I
understand
say
you.
it. But
I know.
I do truly believe in that case that we're probably dealing with somebody that literally was mind tortured into that. Because what would this at that time? Now I gotta remember when Chelsea Manning, this happens with Chelsea Manning, the world wasn't so two thumbs
Trans
up
friendly.
with trans. Yeah, it wasn't so trans friendly at the time. So to me, that's why I used to always think that I was like, oh, they did this to like discredit her, to the character assassinate her. Like, oh, yeah, you said important things, but let's focus on the real thing. She's a girl now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
believe me, the logic behind what you're saying makes sense because you and I have an understanding of what this MK Ultra is, trauma-based mind control, and we also have an understanding of like the political, temperature of the time.
mhm.
If trans is not accepted and someone comes out as trans, they're going to be rejected. It's
Well,
quite
that's
simple as that.
because of this war on, I don't even know what war you put on that, but that's where
We're
they
the war
had
on the mind.
they'd hang up these senators, that's how they blackmail people most of the time. It's not because they get you to take a bribe. That's harder to do. They catch you doing something sexually, having an affair on your wife, having sex with a man, but you're married, things like that. And you're married to a woman, I should say.
It's
And
probably been going on forever, but definitely since the J. Edgar Hoover time.
well,
They were a blackmail operation in
Yeah.
addition to whatever else the FBI does.
He was blackmailing people while he was getting blackmailed. At the same
While
time.
he was getting blackmailed, yeah, because the mob had it on him that he was a gay cross-dresser.
Yeah.
And in his time, you couldn't be a gay cross-dresser. And so that's how they had their hooks in him.
Yeah.
And then he went and did the same shit to other people and blackmailed them for what they couldn't be open about.
Mm-hmm.
Try that now. Time. It's like if someone wanted to tell me like, hey, I've been into your Pornhub's history and I'm going to reveal it's like, maybe I'll get laid more and do something that I want to do. It's like,
well, Matt, if you look at the right stuff, you might be a hero.
Might be a hero.
Oh, Matt's a hero.
Not going to reveal it now, but you know what? If the FBI does and they lay my history bare, it's like, well, now you know what I like, and since I'm popular now, I guess I'm going to get some phone calls.
Well, what's that on? A war on morals? A war? Because it's not really moral. So what is that a war on that they created that people would have such fear in their lives? They would do anything to not have
references revealed.
I guess it's mostly sexual. So yeah, it would be, I don't know what that's a war on. War on sexuality? Not sexuality, because that involves people's war on sex, like war on, because it's only one type was okay.
Now for perspective.
Yeah.
All right. So J. Edgar Hoover couldn't be known that he was a cross-dressing homosexual. Nowadays, it's like, good for you. Easy. Got it. Other senators, Congress people like that, you couldn't have an affair on your wife because, the people in church would frown on it. It's like, you're laughing about something. Go ahead and say it.
Nowadays, if you're cross-dressing or trans, you could be the first lady.
Hey, don't make fun of Big Mike. That's messed up.
Keep going. That's all.
Right.
I completely fucked you on that one.
No, I think I got it back. Look what's happened. Like, what is the sexual scandal of the last 10 years?
Sexual scandal of the last 10 years?
Sex scandal, like the big sex scandal. Like, what's the
Epstein.
fucking Epstein, of course.
But look, most people wouldn't say that. They would be thinking about like Jada Pinkett cheated on Will Smith.
Maybe, but I'm asking you though, and you said the answer I wanted to hear.
No, Epstein.
You said the answer I wanted to hear, but think about this. It's like, it used to be you can't cheat on your wife. It used to be you couldn't be gay. Now everyone's like, fuck you, I'm gay. Fuck you. Oh, I'm sorry. I love my wife, but I cheated on her anyway. It's like, those aren't the things that are going to ruin someone's career anymore. But what will ruin someone's career? Fucking kids, as it oughta. Like, now, in the context, these are different sides of a spectrum here in some ways. Like, one is criminal and really fucked up, and the other one is just like, I'm getting my groove on. So it used to be you could control people. Just what? Please let me just round it up. It used to be you could control people. You could control people with your cheating on your wife or you're gay. But then it got to a point where all that stuff was accepted. So how do you control people? By fucking kids. So what do? You set up an Epstein Island. That's some nefarious shit right there. And I kind of think that's exactly what it. No, not that I think it's what it is. The Epstein Island business was a blackmail scheme orchestrated by intelligence agencies to control powerful people. Yeah. But that's what you need now, because we've all grown up enough to not give a shit if you're gay, to not give a shit if you're a cross-dresser. It doesn't matter. But if you fuck kids, it does matter. And that's where the game has gone to. They have to control people with the really dark methods.
So the media, nobody was like Epstein was okay, right? When it finally happens and it comes out, Amy Robach tries to call the story out. Her bosses won't let her do it.
She was an ABC News reporter who got caught saying something when she thought the camera was off.
Yeah, hot mic.
Hot mic, thank you.
She was speaking, and she says, we had him. We had Epstein. We had all the witnesses with Prince Albert, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. She says the royal family shut it down. because they were like, well, if you run that story, you're not getting access to the royal wedding.
Yeah, access journalism, right?
Epstein is not the first time he even has shown up. He'd already been caught before. He gets a sweetheart deal. See, this is I texted you this week. I texted you something this week. I'm gonna look back and see if I can find it.
I
And
remember. Yeah.
um and it's always in this one direction. Like, here we are, you're like, okay, so you can have sex with men, you can do this, you can dress up as a woman. Like, nobody really fucking cares anymore. But when it comes to kids, like, we all get it. The problem is, it's like we as a nation or we as a group all get it, but every time it goes in that direction, it kind of gets shut down, and you don't see the light put on it like you do see in other stories, or you do see in the voraciousness of attacking people. I wrote to you, somehow these pedos end up escaping over and over. It's almost as if there's a system to protect them. Jimmy Savile, Franklin scandal, Page scandal, Sandusky. Yes, he got caught when it was too late. Woody Allen, Kevin Spacey, and many more. And here we are with border walls built around the Epstein Island list. So anytime it comes to these things, these people, it's all like, don't put the spotlight on it. That's salacious. They don't say that for those things, but it's like anytime this stuff comes up, it all is disappeared. It's all made go away. It's never like, oh, we uncovered a trove more, let's keep on it. You know what? This is really important. It's that people go, this is really important. And then they wink, and then they just keep moving on. And then nothing's ever done. And over and over and over, the system somehow protects these types of groups or individuals. But I believe it turns into groups. That's why they get away with it.
Yeah. Well, it's almost as if what these big news media corporations report always benefits the powerful, and it always attempts to destroy anyone who stands up to the powerful. Every time, without fail. It's like, why is there no client list in the Ghislaine Maxwell case? There should be, but there's not, because they're in that other culture that lives by that what's that maxima? Rules for thee, but not for me. The news stories always protect the powerful and attack the people who are criticizing the powerful without fail. And this pedophile business is the same. And it's really, really interesting, because when you sent that text, my response was something like, holy shit, I never thought about that before. But you're saying somewhere in there, like, yeah, there are all these algorithms to catch people who are doing this, that, and the other. All this technology to catch people who are spying and whistleblowing, and everything is recorded by the NSA, and every conversation and text goes through the algorithms in their supercomputers, but they can't catch the pedos. And in this country, like, this is the like, I think this country has like the biggest pedo scene in the world. I think we're it. I think we're the epicenter for sex slave and that kind of shit.
Unfortunately, I believe we do hold the title. Yeah, that's why I said, somehow they have an algorithm. I could say, if you're saying the wrong thing and this is now misinformation, or the CDC didn't approve what this person's saying, blah, blah, blah. But if they're dealing in anything else, it's no problem. It's come on, man. It's not a coincidence when it keeps happening over and over, and it's in one direction and it never goes. It's just like, oh, come on, man.
You know how we know Joe Biden is a fucking politician? Because I say that too. Come on, man. It feels like a normal kind of guy thing to say.
Oh, come on, man.
But hey, that's side joke. But your point's taken, though. Your point's taken. One direction. It's always in one direction.
So there's a lot of wars going on. There's a lot of
war
wars.
of the mind, war for drugs.
Fucking war for children. I didn't think we have to fight that fucking one.
The war for children. You shouldn't have to.
Jesus fuck. I mean, it's a good fight.
Mismanaged culture.
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's a fight you want to fight. Like, what you got in a fight? Yeah, for children. All right, good fight.
Yeah.
I just can't believe, do we have to fight for, like, we got to do this? Like, there's that much. Okay, we got to protect the children. Okay, yeah, I'm down with it 100%.
Yeah. And I'll say some matter of fucking fact. People normally just wouldn't do that shit. You just don't do that kind of thing. But our society is so manipulated and so twisted, and the mind control is there, the MK Ultra is there, the narrative management's there, and it makes people sick who are vulnerable to it. It wouldn't happen without an outside influence, is what I want to say here.
Yeah, well, that outside influence has created disease. It's created sickness in the society. Because when you have a society that's that's a sick society. When that's I mean, literally in this fucking state I live in, it's gotten ridiculous to the point where they're like, no, they're just creating different rules, creating better rules for like child predators.
They create rules that protect child predators.
Well, like, let's not make it a major felony. Let's not make it like a bigger crime. Let's make it so different age gaps. They just did that in the last year. Like, it's just like, which direction are we going here? What the fuck kind of state do I live in?
There's a subtle normalization because as soon as minor attracted persons became a thing and not a criminal pedophile, that was very suspect. And I know for a long time there have been things like NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Love Association. I know that's existed from at least the 60s. I don't know if it's older. I just know that Allen Ginsberg, a poet that wrote Howl, he was like this icon of the 50s and 60s movements. Like, he was a big deal, but he was also a fucking proud, loud talking member of NAMBLA. It's like, what the fuck?
We used,
and believe me, that's a MK Ultra motherfucker to the hilt. Without doubt.
That's what is that?
You had some big eyes, man. You didn't know that about him? About Allen Ginsberg?
Everybody, this is all done for comedic relief. We don't know the actual voter rolls for no, dude. I've heard his name over and over. He is definitely like in the loop of MK Ultra. It's because they used him. I believe they used him in the movement of like the hippies and stuff. They kind of inserted him.
Yeah.
And then he's also NAMBLA, dude. Didn't know that. I learned about NAMBLA from Stern when he brought it up on the thing. You're like, what? Yeah.
No, look, I'm gonna tell a perspective because I think it's important for this conversation because life is complicated, things get deep. There's a lot of subtlety in the relationships of people. And there's a podcast I really enjoy listening to, Dan Savage. It's kind of like, I don't listen to him anymore because it's sort of my moments past. But I really enjoyed his perspective on, he had a podcast called Savage Love about all like the freakies out there. And it was great because you could like, whatever, you tune in, listen to the show. It was very entertaining and knowledgeable in its way. But he described some of this business between an older gay man and a younger gay man.
Yeah, but older and younger are very speculative words. Like,
yeah. Now, give me a second because it's gonna sound like I'm defending the pedos, and I'm not. I promise you. But
as long as younger isn't like underage.
Well, for him, per his own podcast, which is publicly out there, he was 15, 16. His lover was 26, 27, something like that. Like there's an age gap, and he was, I believe, below the age of consent, if I remember right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you should send me some hate mail if I am wrong. But the point is this: for this person, when he was young, he had a sexual encounter with a man who was older, and for him it was good. What's happening in this country, it's not that. But I want to put it out there because things are complicated. Life has subtlety in its relationships, and there are things like that happen that are turned out okay. That's not what's happening with this criminal enterprise that is pedophilia. I just want to make sure we have a larger picture of the whole thing and not sound like we're these zealots on one side where it's like anyone under 18, if you fuck them, we're going to kill you. It's like, understand there's subtlety in these relationships, but what's happening.
Yeah, but you say he turned out okay. So do people that have been raped at when they're, I mean, it's
I don't think that was the point he was making.
I know, I don't think that was the point he was making. But he could also have a syndrome where he's just defending his captor. not a captor,
Maybe,
but
but
his
in a nutshell,
violator.
he was like, look, I was young, I was horny, and I fucked this hot guy, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay,
That was
yeah,
his story.
but that's the story from the 15-year-olds. You know, it's like as a society, we're not trying to have 26-year-olds fuck 15-year-olds.
I don't want to. I don't want
That's
to
a
either,
that's
but I
a
just don't want to sound like I'm on this like side where it's like,
we're
damn
being
everybody.
general here. We're being very general here. This is
Fair,
all very general. We're
fair,
being
and
very general.
maybe
I'm saying
Dan's.
we do you want 26-year-olds fucking 15-year-olds? I mean, I can generally say no, I don't want that.
I do not. We can
Okay,
both
that's a
emphatically say
yeah.
we don't. We
Yeah,
understand that.
I'm not looking for every case point here. We're not the court on this, but like we've really skated. See, I don't like this because now we've skated away from what we were talking about. And we put it on this little borderline and it all makes it seem okay.
Well,
When
no,
we're
I
talking
mean, we
about
literally said in this
pedophilia, no,
conversation
we're
that
talking about
like
pedophilia.
minor attracted persons has been normalized, I apologize because I don't mean to be on that side of normalizing pedophilia.
No, you're not
It's
on that
just that I
side.
heard someone once eloquently say, it's like, for me, it was fine and I threw it back, but
Yeah, great. That's his story.
it's his
It
story.
doesn't mean shit. That's his story. That's what it means. He's got a story. And it's you repeating his story. If it was your story, it'd be one thing. You're just repeating some story of a dude who
I'll give
possibly
you
is
a touche on that.
victimized.
That was
Yeah,
a
he
good
was
point.
victimized possibly. We don't know. But you're just repeating it and you're repeating the nice parts. And that's he's also has a certain agenda he's pushing on his fucking show. It's about like super open sexuality. And I'm sure he is a defender of minor attracted persons and all that.
I don't know that that's true, but
I'll
hey,
I'll take a
I will stand corrected that it wasn't right for me to tell his story because I'm not him and I don't know his story and I don't know the circumstances of that encounter.
Yeah, I mean, all our premise, like, yeah, like yeah, it just bothers me. Like, fuck that story because who cares about that story? We're talking about people that prey on children, and
Yeah,
then
and
that
it's
somehow, yeah, but that
our
somehow
problem is there's a lot of
normalizes
them.
part, yeah, but that somehow normalizes part of the whole thing where people are like, well, there is the whole, there was, there were ages where they were 16 or
No,
15.
I
So
get you,
no,
bro. I
that's
get you. I
it.
was
Like,
literally
yeah,
condemning people for using the phrase minor attracted persons, and then
yeah,
I defended this
and
person's
fuck
story.
minor
So
attractive persons. Like, sure, if you want to be that, don't act on it. Like, just let minors be minors.
I'll stand corrected.
Because what you might end up making, it might be okay. It might work out. It might be okay. Nobody gets damaged in this. It
That's a
might
good
be.
point.
That's fine.
That's
Yeah.
actually a good point that might be worth tossing back at Dan himself because as I just relayed the story, because I believed his sincerity, someone else could take them like, I'm going to try and fuck that 15-year-old simply because it worked out well for someone who
Yeah.
told a story online.
It's not
So
cool. Like, it just don't be cool. Just be cool. Like, don't be 25 fucking 15-year-olds. Don't be 15 fucking 5-year-olds. Don't. Jesus Christ, we've really gone off the fucking rails right now.
we did dive deep into
War.
did we have a war for that one? Is that a war on
Well,
that's
that
a
was
war
the
on
war.
children or
Well,
something like that?
through this, yeah, but that's where they're doing a normalization through the sexuality of the maps of minor attracted persons. This is like a crazy time to be alive. That there are people that are like, no, it's okay. It's like, wow, you guys are literally down with anything. It's chop their dick off, fuck them, like get them into it. But why don't they should have to work 40 hours too? Why, like, fucking, you're an adult now. You're 6.
Well,
Like,
remember that thing. It's like in California, you can't lay in a tanning bed if you're under 18,
yeah,
but you can get gender reassignment surgery. But
yeah, you can take drugs and
so
change
you were saying California's been passing some laws, and those are all
just now we just had the mushroom one.
just hitting the edge of it. But
Yeah, it's just this is a wacky state right now. Whatever. It's a wacky state of mind for I feel like most of us as Americans, people of the world. It's just a wacky. We are in so many wars, and now there's a war in Israel with Hamas and the Palestinians.
I think we had to bring it back to that.
Yeah, there's a war in Ukraine. There's a war, but all the while is remember there's that 5D war on your mind. They're trying to broadcast what's all of this into your mind and have you manifest it for them.
Yeah, and
We're the
anyone who doesn't know what he's talking about, look up fifth generation warfare. Look up fifth generation warfare. It's it is, as he said, a war on your mind. It's a propaganda war. It's a narrative management war. It's an information control war. You should check it out because if you're not aware of it, you're going to be a victim to it.
Yeah. We've all been victim to it. Once you become aware of it, you can try to step outside of it and not participate, and you can start to understand whatever you see happening around you in social media or in any large media context. You can start to understand it's the opposite. Whatever it is, it's the opposite generally.
Yeah. And don't overestimate us. You know, Agent Pine and I, we are also subject to this war. And you know, we don't know all our blind spots. We're not sitting on some high horse. Like we're in this war too, and our thoughts are manipulated too. But we've taken a lot of time, which we invite you to do, to just look at both sides of the story, and then you can make an informed decision and maybe be a little less influenced by this stuff. Because if you sit in your echo chamber and you listen to one side, you're going to be influenced by it. If you start to look at both sides, you're going to be less influenced by it. If you spend more time doing that again and again, you'll be even less influenced. It's work, but you could see through a lot of bullshit in a short amount of time if you apply yourself to looking for some truth and not narrative.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
Well, shit, I was just defending pedophiles. I better say something good. God damn. And I'm glad you called me out. I accept you because I needed that.
It's not whatever. I mean, I'm just down with what you said. It is a war on our mind. That's what all these wars are. They're not real wars. The war on drugs, the war on terrorism, they're not real wars. They're wars on our mind to capture our mind and make us think in one way. So then we're this or we're anti that. And now they've got you in a control mechanism. Hey, I think this is a good time. Just sign off here, go over to the Patreon. We're going to hash out Israel. We're going to talk about the things that nobody wants to hear anybody talk about.
Ooh, yeah.
Or
it's a tough one, but we're going to do it.
Well, yeah, if you have sensitive ears, it's not for you because we're not going to just say the narrative. We're not going to be nice about everything. It's just that that doesn't help anybody. It makes people feel comfortable. Fuck being comfortable. Being comfortable has gotten us to where we're at right now.
Nice. Now is not the time.
Fuck no. All right.
We're under attack. We're at war. I love you too. Just keep your sword sharp, my friend.
Yes.